This is Rob Chappell.
This is Omar Waheed.
And it's 365 Amplified for Friday, October, 17th or so.
That is...
That sounds right.
Friday. That is that day. It's been a blur.
The week has been a blur. In a little bit, we will have State Assembly Representative and gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong in the studio. But before we get to that, a few things to mention from Madison 365 this week. First of all, coming up very soon, it is Hmong New Year. And this is a special one because they are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the arrival of Hmong people in Wisconsin. Folks, you may be familiar that the Hmong people were an ethnic community in Southeast Asia, sort of sided with the United States in the wars over there in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and as a result had to flee and settled mostly in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And that is almost exactly 50 years ago now. So the Hmong New Year celebration in Madison has been happening since the early 80s, 1980 or 81. And Dave Dahmer has a preview of this year's celebration on Madison365.org this week. And the focus this year is on sort of recapturing and reconnecting with roots and with the elders. He spoke with the organizer of the event, the chair of the committee, and sort of made the point that as the Hmong people in Wisconsin are now sort of well into their third generation, assimilation happens, and so the feeling is that previous celebrations have been sort of less connected to the Hmong roots and the Hmong culture. So this year they're being very intentional about honoring elders and reconnecting with those cultural traditions. There's going to be 23 dance teams in the competition, that's kind of a lot, it feels like, which is cool.
I think so. I'm learning so much about Hmong people living here.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up here.
Right.
I only learned the term when I got here. I've never heard it before.
But Hmong, like just
I've never heard the term before. So growing up here, the Hmong people arrived just like as I was being born, so like I did not know, I had never heard the term either until I got to college, and I met a friend of mine in college was Hmong, and I was like, what's that? Iowa's equivalent is people from the Balkans. So that's it. I grew up with a lot of Bosnians, so I know a lot of them.
But I've gotten more acquainted with more Hmong people, especially in this job. But again, that celebration is November 1st and 2nd at Lion Energy Center. That's the big one in Madison. There's several other smaller ones. Madison College will have one. Some other folks, but that's the big one. And everybody's welcome. If you want to take a look at that, we'll link to that in the show notes. That preview that Dave has at Madison365.org. Also this week, on Indigenous Peoples Day, on Monday, Omar, you went to Milwaukee.
I did go to Milwaukee. I was there for a very long time. But it was fun. I went to the Potawatomi casino, not just to lose money, but also to go to the Indigenous Business Conference, where it was their fourth annual one. It was founded by the Indigenous group, founded by three people. You'll recognize the name Rob Perro if you follow 365 a lot. Mm-hmm. Zor Fulwilder and Colin Price. These three people realized there wasn't really too much of any kind of centralized group for Indigenous business and advocacy and connecting people around the country, which they found a little surprising. There are some scattered efforts, but it's mostly local to individual tribes and maybe some state-based alliances, but nothing national. So they founded that, and this year was the fourth one, and to their surprise, a lot of people from out of state came. Actually, about a quarter of the people out of, I want to say about 500 people attended. So They were really surprised.
25% of those were from outside Wisconsin?
Outside Wisconsin.
Oh, that's cool.
They did when they're kind of vamping for time a little bit. So if you're from out of state, stand up. I was like, oh, this is a lot of people from out of state. And they were surprised too. They didn't realize how many people were going to.
That's cool.
Be from out of state. So it was just a lot of tribal leaders, indigenous businesses, people hoping to start their own businesses that are indigenous, all there together for one thing, to hear expertise, to meet each other and network and figure out how to get this. Rob Perot has mentioned on multiple times that Indian country is poised for a very specific change, especially in the wake of tariffs and the loss of a lot of funding. They are considered foreign trade zones, so they're not subject to tariffs until it actually leaves the reservation. So all these raw materials can come in. They can be manipulated, which is, I guess that's the official term, into the final product, and there's only going to be one tax on that is when it leaves. So you want to do some business on the cheap.
You got to get around tariffs. Look to sovereign nations that are right here.
To them. So they figure, we should start leveraging that. They've been trying to leverage other things like cannabis and kind of ending some of their contracting out of their lands that they contract out to farmers. And like, hey, we're poised to do this too with our sovereignty. So it was all just a congregation of that, and talking about all the different opportunities that tribes have right now. And it's looking bright for tribes, actually.
That's fantastic. And it is so important that they're leveraging that sovereignty, because it's not just ceremonial. Like, it actually means something economically for those folks.
And the first day of it was on Indigenous Peoples Day. So
right. And there was a thing at the bridge, right? At Home Bridge?
Yeah. Apparently every year they light up the bridge, the colors of the medicine wheel.
Oh, cool.
So it was neat. They had drumming. What was it called? Fire Nation drumming group from Potawatomi. Awesome. And, just get like real into it, and you just hear it shaking your insides. And then the bridge lights up. It's a great experience, honestly.
Yeah, that is cool. We had at the very first Wisconsin Leadership Summit back in 2018, we had it at the Ho Chunk facility near Wisconsin Dells, and we had a drum there, and it's a really incredible experience.
Oh yeah,
just to like the not just the sound of it, but like it kind of shakes your insides, which is very cool.
And while I was there, of course, you got to gamble a little bit. I don't gamble very often, but I was like, I got $80 in my wallet. Let's go hit the tables. Lost half my money instantly. Decided to go hit the slots because that's better somehow. Won all my money back and then some.
All right.
I was like, you know what? I'm up. Let me gamble more. And I lost it all. Which is why I do not go to casinos.
But, you call it a contribution to the Potawatomi people.
I mean, gotta lose money to lose money.
I don't think that's the saying. All right, and that we should mention that that was on Indigenous Peoples Day, which was redeclared Columbus Day by the Trump administration, which is such an eye-rolling thing. Like,
I guess. I mean, everyone thought Columbus was a bad person. This is kind of like a mutually agreed upon thing, even in his own time.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. Like this is not revisionist at all. This is people at the time. They're like, what is this guy doing?
Like, why are we still calling it Columbus Day? Right. We all hate this man. Let's change the name to at least honor the people that were rampantly killed because of his actions.
Yeah.
That I don't think that was very woke. That was just kind of sensible.
Just kind of sensible. And it's not new. Like, it goes back a ways now. So, I don't know. Just the administration, again, proving it's just trolling at this point. Now, the other thing that you attended this week was downtown Madison. at the Progress Center for Black Women?
I did go to the Progress Center for Black Women. If you've never been there, very nice office. A lot of decor. I love the decor and the couches and the color coordination.
Yeah, and this is Sabrina Madison, now an Alder, but also founder of this really important nonprofit that got started just almost about the same time we did. So we've kind of grown up together as sort of local nonprofits. But what was Sabrina talking about?
Alder Madison decided to hold a press conference to raise alarms over how so many nonprofits are losing so much funding.
We are aware.
We've reported on this.
Yep.
But a lot of them are starting to feel it now. Is the truth. So she held this press conference to get the community to know that, hey, we're feeling it. We're getting more calls than ever, especially at the Meadowlands Apartments, which they plan to open a on-site career and wellness hub in 2026. But they are there right now. But they plan on making a more permanent fixture there. But if she's feeling it, other nonprofits are feeling it. And if you want to continue to do the work, you have to go to the community to raise those funds. And that's what she's calling for. She's calling for the community to come out and support so they can continue helping serve so many women, especially Black women, who are being continuously disenfranchised. She did mention a report with the State of Working Wisconsin, which came out this past August, their annual report. It shows that Black women are earning nearly 30% less on average, and that's also coupled with a U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report that recently came out that shows that 300,000 Black women have also left the U.S. labor force for a combination of factors, such as the pay disparages, largely working in the nonprofit space and the downscaling there. Increased stressors in their health, especially as they're cutting funding to initiatives that were supposed to help Black women who already have some of the most extreme health disparages in the country. So, Black women are hurting, and there's this organization that wants to make sure that even if they are going to lose this funding from the federal government, that they can still do it, and they want the community to rally behind them. So she's making calls. She's going to make a lot of calls every single day. She is hoping to get about 1,000 people to donate $20 a month for 12 months to raise those necessary funds to continue doing the work. So if you do get a call from Sabrina Madison, I think you should answer. I'm not going to say maybe donate, because I don't think we're allowed to do that, but I don't think it would hurt.
It would not hurt. And we'll be coming to you starting next month with a similar ask, because as you said, the nonprofit sector is hurting just generally. Anytime the economy is in a tough spot, like nonprofits suffer in this current political environment. Foundations, corporations, philanthropists who spent a few years really focused on Black and brown organizations are less so. Right? They don't. The philanthropic sector is nervous about equity and diversity, and we're nervous about either some of them just kind of were never really committed to it and just jumped on the bandwagon in 2020. Frankly, others are genuinely don't want to draw attention, don't kind of want to keep their head down and focus their philanthropy on other things that don't have the words Black in it. So we're feeling that, frankly. Journalism's under attack, as well as anything related to DEI or whatever. And I'm certain the Progress Center for Black Women has lost some funding that.
I mean, which doesn't only just serve Black women; they serve everyone. It's just the name, and yeah, of course, there is a focus on Black women, but
and uplift. It's the rising tide, all boats situation, right? Black women, like you said, have the worst health disparities in this country. Literally, in Wisconsin, a Black woman is 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than a white woman. Like it's insane. And if you work on closing that gap, it creates better health outcomes for everyone, right? So, like, this is not discriminatory against white people, for Christ's sake, but you understand that in the current climate, people with money, people who are philanthropists, want to kind of keep their head down, right? And that hurts organizations like Progress Center for Black Women. It hurts organizations like Madison 365, Centro Hispano, all of them. So, and it got to the point that Sabrina Madison was like, I gotta say this out loud, right? All right. So that recap of that press conference and all that's up at madison365.org this morning. Last thing I'll mention is tomorrow is another No Kings rally.
Yes, I'm so excited. Last time I wore comfortable shoes to walk in, but not comfortable to take off because I do have very flat and wide feet. I do tend to wear the same 3 pairs of shoes to accommodate that. I decided not to last time, but you will see me in my beat up Nikes this time.
Awesome.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be so many people. I don't think I'll be able to hear anything that's going on.
Right.
So,
man
on the street.
You don't really get to hear the speeches as much because there's just too many people. But they're gathering at the McPike Park on the east side at 2:00, marching to the Capitol, general rally at the Capitol at 3 until 5, I guess is what they're saying.
Who knows? These things never start on time or end when they say when the crowd fizzles out is when it's over.
Right.
Which is usually like an hour and a half into it.
Yeah, and Omar will be there. We'll be covering it. Actually, I've been thinking about this because it's not quite accurate to call it a protest because they're not necessarily making any demands or you're not necessarily disrupting anything really.
No, not these protests.
No, so it's more of a demonstration or a rally, and somebody on Blue Sky was or somebody on a newsletter which then made its way to Blue Sky was kind of complaining about lack of mainstream media coverage of these demonstrations.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The things that every news organization is sending at least one person out to
right
every time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's just kind of not true that they are being covered.
Like national outlets are sending someone or contracting someone and Stringer services are shooting out people there too.
Yeah, but also, I kind of made the point that first of all, these aren't because they're not protests exactly, and there's not a lot of conflict. Like I understand that news directors, like we're going to cover it, you're going to be there, but I can understand how like a short-staffed TV newsroom might not place it as a priority because there's not going to be conflict or whatever. And secondly, I'm not sure that mainstream media coverage of these things is necessarily what they need, right? Because there are these affordances that we have. Everybody's got a phone. Like you can put the story of the protest or of the demonstration out on your own, kind of from inside it. One of the Dr. Pam Oliver, one of the leading professor emeritus from University of Wisconsin and one of the leading scholars on social movements, told me I was entirely wrong about that. So I will trust her judgment. But she was saying that when it's not a protest, but when it's a sort of demonstration / rally, the meaning is in the numbers, right? It's not that you're disrupting anything particular, but it's like the number of people who show up is what's important.
Yeah,
that's what she said. And
I don't think that's true.
You don't think so?
I don't think that's. Protest is disruptive. Protest calls for action.
Right.
That could be one person.
Right,
Have you seen the people who stand on East Washington on the way to John Olin Drive. There's just sometimes one guy that stands up there calling out Planned Parenthood. I haven't seen him there for a while, maybe because of the construction, but that's a protest. He's disrupting traffic, and he's calling for action on a single thing.
Right, exactly. That's I think that's actually the point, because when it's a protest, it could be just a small number of people, and it's the conflict that's gives it the meaning. There's the disruption that gives it the meaning. When it's a demonstration like No Kings, where there's not conflict, where there's not disruption, it's
people talking.
Right, exactly, and the meaning in that case comes from the sheer number of people. Mm-hmm. So that does make some sense. And she also said that it's the mainstream media coverage that cuts through to the elites, which is elites in the sense of the sociological sense of that term, which is sort of the people who run things both at the government level and civil society level. So it does make some sense that mainstream media coverage is important for that. So I was probably wrong. But she also wanted to continue the dialogue, because I know Pam because she was my professor in my first ever graduate seminar in sociology. So that's how I know her. And we've kept in touch. So maybe, and she wanted to continue the dialogue about it. So maybe I'll invite her on the podcast or something. I
mean, sure, we can argue about words. I think that's our favorite thing to do here.
Kind of, yeah, and that's kind of what sociologists do. But to have that kind of level of expertise talking about this, and what does, and we'll talk a little bit with Francesca Hong also about Kings and the sort of the efficacy or the meaning of these demonstrations in this particular moment. So I don't know, it's fascinating. But that's all we have for you right now. We're going to take a short pause, and then we'll come back. Francesca Hong will be here. Thanks, Omar.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody. And we're back, and joining us now, a very special, exciting guest. She is the Assembly Representative for the 76th District, which encompasses downtown Madison, the Isthmus, parts of the East Side, parts of the North Side. She is the first ever Asian American in the Assembly. She's the founder of the Asian American Caucus, and she's aiming to become the first Asian American governor of Wisconsin. Her name is Francesca Hong. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I know it's running for anything is a very busy thing, so giving us a few minutes of time is very generous, and we appreciate it. I want to jump in right away. Was just why are you doing this? What the hell? I mean, it's a big leap from the assembly to the governor's office, and what's your thinking, and what prompted you to jump in?
I ask myself that every day, and I have a new reason why every day. And I think this morning I thought about how fascism really aims to divide us and distract us and prevent us from imagining better. And I thought to myself, no one gets to tell us that. No one gets to tell us what we can imagine and what we can dream. And so with these moments that we're living through right now, what it demands is a movement. And a movement is driven by working class people and folks who demand change. And since I've been in office, I have been doing things differently. Since, with my restaurant that I owned for the last 7 years, I wanted it to be more than, a dining space for customers and workers. And growing up here in Madison, I think I've been so proud to live in this state. And I think it'd be an honor to serve as governor in a state that I love.
You went straight to fascism. That's that's on your mind. What is your feeling on what a state level person, state level Democrat, state level elected official can do in that to push against the fascism that we see around us now?
In community, we keep each other safe. Just this morning, we saw a post around potential federal agents in town, and it was, checking in with folks in the community who have connections to and are working to help vulnerable folks. And I just want to remind people while I'm here that if you think you've ever seen ICE activity, please call the 24-hour Voces hotline before posting anything on socials or sharing information publicly. So important to spread information and not panic. That number is 1-800-427-0312. You can go back and edit that if I got the number wrong. I've been looking at it all morning. But yeah, and then the community shared information about why the federal agents were there, likely for a drug-related investigation. But more and more people are asking me about what we can do. And more folks now have access to Know Your Rights training. We've got a slide deck if folks want to go to at Francesca Hong WI. We've got PDFs and slide decks with Know Your Rights training that you can take for yourself and even host house parties so folks in your network can get trained up on, how to be more than because we need to be more than bystanders.
Actually I got downvoted like crazy for posting on Reddit. Don't post your ICE sightings necessarily because I mean, that just, like you said, that just spreads the fear, which is what they want, right?
Yep.
They want us to be afraid as much as to actually arrest people.
Yeah. And then the state can and must do more. We introduced the Keep Families Together bill package, which would prohibit law enforcement at the local level from cooperating with ICE. It would require that federal agents have visible identity and can't walk around here disappearing people while having masks on. It would prevent the creation of larger detention centers, especially since a lot of those places are going to likely become internment camps. There is more that the state can do to prevent federal agents from coming in and harming our communities. And we have, the majority party, the Republicans, have no interest in helping to protect communities. And they've introduced legislation that would require cooperation with federal agents.
Exactly the opposite of it.
It's absurd.
And now we're hearing that Illinois Governor J.B. Brisker is talking about prosecuting federal agents potentially. Eric Swalwell just introduced something is going to introduce something at the federal level about taking the masks off. Right? Do you think Democrats in leadership at the federal level and even at the state level, maybe some of the other folks running for governor in the primary race, are doing enough, are vocal enough about these issues?
We have to remain vigilant and vocal and share resources on how folks in the community can help protect one another while also being well informed around, just like we talked about, we spread information, not panic. We, have to make sure that we're thinking about vulnerable communities and why they may not want to be located and how can we do more to keep folks feeling safe and create spaces where folks can go and know that they are safe. We can always do better. We can always do more. But I think when the federal government is acting lawlessly, when they're sending their own military against their own citizens, we have to take action. But when folks aren't sure what action can be, being vocal is important because we have to show solidarity if we can't take action yet.
So when obviously your sort of reason for this is the resistance, right, against this federal regime that is, we know how they are, but if you are a governor, right, you're gonna have to govern the state. What are I want to get into some of your sort of policy positions and stuff like that, but first, what are, besides the fascism? Let's set that aside for a moment. Never thought I would say that on a podcast. What are the issues, sort of the domestic state issues that you're hearing are most important to folks on the campaign trail?
Care. Regardless of what zip code I'm in, folks want to, and we can engage on issues around childcare, elder care, public education, paid leave. I mean, when we have communities that are rooted in caring for themselves, for one another, for our kids, for our workers, for our small businesses, we build stronger communities, which is why, this goes back to imagining better and know that we make better possible is in universal childcare, fully funded public schools, paid leave for all, investing in our care workers, cheaper health care. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum, what your background might be. One of these care issues, you have something, a story that directly impacts you, your family, someone you love. And so when we talk about these policies, folks want to engage because they are top of mind right now. And everyone deserves to live in a community where they can care for one another, themselves, and that it's an affordable place for them to live.
Affordability is something we hear a lot about in a vast range of contexts. One of your policy positions is free childcare for anybody up to 400% of making 4% of federal poverty, which is
about $110,000 for a family of four.
Free childcare for anybody up to that point. How does that work? How do you pay for that, or who's paying for that?
So it works a little bit like life insurance, but the state would be doing more in sharing, providing subsidies. And it would, in California, there is a small payroll tax that goes on folks' paychecks that goes towards childcare funds. Depending on how big we have to make the program, there could be a small tax, just like Social Security or an employment insurance, that folks, if they want to access this program, that they could choose to have put out. But we have to look at what's going to increase revenue, and taxing some of our wealthiest Wisconsinites is going to help bring in more revenue to the state to subsidize these programs as well.
And it is anybody over $110,000 for a family of four would also be subsidized, right? So they're not necessarily paying full what we are paying now.
Correct.
Which is sort of market rate for childcare, which is not sustainable for a lot of families.
Yeah, and the childcare infrastructure in Wisconsin is incredibly fragile. And we're at risk of, in the next couple of years, seeing up to 60 childcare centers close. And so we also have to be thinking about raising wages for childcare workers and ensuring that providers, those who are, they want to provide high quality childcare at affordable rates for their families, and many of them aren't able to, but then we can provide additional subsidies from the state to help them cover some of those costs.
So it's not just about affording it, it's about actually even finding a spot for your kid to begin with.
And these are investments, right?
Sure.
This is what businesses across the state are now invested in. Many are invested in childcare policies, in paid leave policies. A lot of small businesses can't afford to provide healthcare for all of their employees. And so it is the job of the state to then help provide social insurance programs so that we have healthier local economies.
Speaking of healthier local economies, you're a small business owner, or you have been, and one of the things also on your this is on your website, francescahong.com, right? Do you remember that, right? Okay. Is that you want to institute a public bank for small business owners? I'm old enough to remember when there used to be a bank at the post office. Like postal banking was a thing. You could go get money orders and stuff at the post office, and you can't do that anymore. How does a state public bank work in terms of providing access to capital for small business entrepreneurs?
So we have a very similar entity, but it's like a pseudo-governmental entity in the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation.
Okay, sure.
And that could be run much more efficiently and with additional state funding. And so it would require potentially like looking at that model as well, and models like North Dakota where they have public banks. And this would help with especially small businesses who need equitable access to loans at lower interest rates, or grants as well, which is part of what WEDC does, but not nearly enough and not at the rates that many of our small businesses need.
So you wouldn't necessarily be building something from scratch, but maybe expanding the
it would be in phases, right? And looking at what we're already working with, figuring out how to expand that and move it more towards being a public good as opposed to a part governmental agency that is somewhat accountable to the state, but also, it requires a board. And I think that we can look at what WEDC is doing now. I mean, it is still something that was implemented by the Walker administration. But there's some infrastructure there, right? So how can we make that more accessible to the public?
And under the umbrella of care, healthcare, obviously a big issue for everybody. What are your thoughts on? Obviously, expanding badger care is kind of a key thing for most Democrats. But
expanding badger care is the bare minimum, but when we have a federal government that is consistently slashing or taking away health care and health insurance for working class people, the state needs to step in. And one of the ways that we can recoup costs and make health insurance more affordable is to hold these massive for-profit hospitals that are mega corporations and look at what sort of caps that we can implement on them so they're not putting those costs as much onto our workers, our families, people who need access to healthcare. And so there are going to need to be different, we're going to have to operate on multiple tracks here to bring down healthcare costs. And another way to do that is a lot of people work for small businesses, and small businesses need access to lower insurance premiums that they can then provide for their employees. And so this is going to be multi-pronged, but I think, again, looking at who is making profit over with the labor and the work that working class people are putting out, and that's what we have to start changing the most. It's this monopoly of private equity that takes away our ability to build economic security as working class people.
All of these things you're saying are obviously pretty obviously core sort of democratic positions, some to the left of some of your opponents even in the Democratic Party. You've still got a Republican legislature you're going to have to deal with as governor
potentially.
For now,
I
was just going to ask, are you we redistricted the whole state last year, and Democrats made big gains in the legislature. Are you optimistic that it's going to flip this year at the same time that you're hoping to become governor?
I am always nauseously optimistic
you can't
that
do this
we will build,
right?
Working class power and have a democratic trifecta. I think this 2026 is going to be our best shot. And I'm excited about some of the candidates that we are recruiting that I think will be able to flip some of these purple districts. I think we've got a good chance of flipping the Senate more than and then the Assembly. There's a little bit more work, but the path is there.
It maybe even because that whole body turns over every 2 years, so maybe even in the middle of this next go-to-trail term, if you don't flip it in 26, maybe in 28.
We're gonna keep working to gain more seats, and for the Assembly, we need to gain 5 seats to get the majority. And we're targeting more than that, so we could get more than that.
When you talk about the candidates you're recruiting, are you getting out and about in the state to hit those districts? And is that part of your campaign? How are you taking your case, your message outside of downtown Madison, outside around the state?
Well, I've been privileged enough to be able to travel the state, even as the state rep from Madison for the last 4 or 5 years now. And we hit the ground running on the campaign trail after we launched. And, folks I always want to remind people that one of the best ways that you can help strengthen democracy is to pay attention to local elections. And even in districts that are very red, a Democratic candidate running against the Republican state rep or school board members or council and county races, it is so important for us to keep chipping away at these red districts as well, and for folks who are progressives running in those districts to feel supported and turn out, more voters for the general statewide elections. And so when we go outside of Madison, we talk about issues that people deeply care about, but we also want to make sure there's always a call to action. And beyond supporting my campaign, I remind folks to stay deeply engaged in their local politics and their local races.
You must have been listening to this podcast because we say that a lot, that your local election has more consequence in your daily life than the presidential one does in most cases, except when it's a fascist that's taking over the country.
Yeah. But I always tell folks it's the folks who are closest to your door whose policies are going to impact you first.
Right.
But another reason why I think it's so important for us to push for universal policies and have that be our standard and expectation is because folks need ways to improve their lives right now. Mm-hmm. Like this is, we're feeling the economic impacts of rising costs, things being less affordable. And so we need more public goods, and we can have more public goods when we have a government that is for good. And that means transforming both the culture and the way that we do things. And I think starting with a vision where we have universal policies that gives everyone an opportunity to improve their lives is the responsible thing to do. And that incrementalism is the irresponsible thing to do.
Mm. Oh, that's so interesting. Because that's been the mantra, right? Is change takes time.
Austerity got us here. Yes, the Walker administration and the Voss regime of hoarding power and answering to the Diane Hendricks, right? Mm-hmm. Which just means we have to work even harder and to make sure that we're able to repair some of that harm, undo it, and then work to make sure that, but folks deserve urgency and action and change that meets the moment.
You've talked a couple of times about sort of strength in numbers and in community. And there's a rally this weekend, Saturday. There's another No Kings across the country. You going to go there? You going to go? Is it useful? What's the value
absolutely.
of those sorts of demonstrations?
Absolutely. Protest is direct democracy. And sometimes we need more social proof to see that we are not alone in fighting back against fascism. And when you see a flood of people in the streets, it matters. But it also matters when you're in a town of maybe a couple thousand people, and you've got 100 people coming out with, no fascists, protect communities, no ICE. That helps build movements and expand who gets to be a part of a movement. And so these protests absolutely matter.
Now, campaigning for governor and also just being in the assembly at this day and age, do you have time for books and movies and what's in your Netflix queue right now?
So one of my the ways that I kind of wind down, or just if I need to pause my brain, I love watching the Great British Baking Show. That is, but that's the only cooking show I'll watch. It's
the kindest, the nicest competition show.
It really is, and they have some zingers in there. Noel does, but I think that, and I'm finally getting into Ruth Conniff's Milked. I hadn't, so I'm excited to get into that.
Very good. All right, Francesca Hong, thank you so much again for the time. We will see you November 3rd at the 365 Leadership Summit. Very excited for that.
Yes, please register for that summit. You still can, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. How can people follow you, find you, support the campaign?
Yes, please go to www.francescahong.com or follow us on socials, Francesca Hong WI.
Very good, Francesca. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for having me.
365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.